affect your performance today? Is it going to affect? No, right? Of course.
I don't know.
Hey Tyler, go
Okay.
take a
If
hot
you're
yoga
tired, just let
class
us know.
in Stockholm. Go to yoga. Are you in Stockholm?
Yeah, I'm thinking I know what I'm supposed. The right thing to do is to actually get a bag of ice and lay down on it, and is the correct thing at this moment. But
If you find a Bikram class, go to a Bikram class and get into a heated room.
No, Bikram.
As I was saying, go in to find it because the ladies there I know. And actually, if you really want to go see a really nice studio that does restorative and yin, check out Yoga Maya in Stockholm. They're friends of mine.
I have the most popular place is a good friend of mine here. Okay.
Well, take it easy.
Yeah, I know. I'm just.
Yeah,
I'm
just
now.
relax. Okay.
I'm
If
very.
you need us to back up, just say it. Okay, we can always
Okay.
cut it short.
Okay.
And Foreign has a tech inclusion room today anyway, so you can start early.
You're right. The first thing I thought about was my masseuse back home. He could fix it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, and $5 an hour.
$10.
Well, yeah, depending. Yeah, but yeah, it's not very expensive at all.
Yeah.
I want that one too. Like after moving the whole week, that's all I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you're sounding better today, Messi, compared to yesterday.
Yeah, you really are.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You must keep your spirit high.
Actually, Missy, I listened. I caught up yesterday evening with the replay of the room, and thanks for sharing. It really touched me.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you.
And Messi, know when it's time to leave also, right? So you don't have to be brave and strong. So when you feel like it's time to leave, you're not abandoning family and friends and your home country.
Her friends are overseas.
Just know when it's time to leave, okay?
Thank you.
I think
Messi,
your friend are asking, your family are asking you to leave, right? They are all overseas.
Yeah. Actually, one of our cousins called 2 days ago. My God, you can't believe it. She was hyperventilating. She's like, you gotta be here now. So we had to actually be therapists and calm her down. So
yeah.
Family.
But are you considering, Messi? Are you considering leaving the country?
Yes, we have to.
Because,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Because my husband is American, and the American embassy is saying all citizens to get out. They have about like 40,000 Americans here, and they don't want to have, I guess, a repeat of Afghanistan. So just in case, I mean, it's not that bad yet, but American embassy, Israel, and others are getting their citizens out. So and his job is also saying he needs to leave because I think it costs them a lot more to evacuate us if things get worse. So that's what they are doing. But for me, being I know Cheryl and everybody was running, guard your health yesterday, but for me is like I'm doing a startup and Florian and most of you know what I'm doing. So I'm just hoping we can stick around and things change.
You're building the platform now, right? So that can be done remotely. That can be done remotely. You don't have to be on site.
But Messi, question: given you're working on a tech platform, maybe you're not necessarily geographically bound, or is it really you're approaching an Ethiopian focus?
Yeah, it is not physically, but I think because of the platform, as you know, is helping the Ethiopian businesses. So I really do stay around to help the businesses physically, helping them get their due diligence papers and things like how to make them attractive so they become investable, right? Before even putting them on the platform. So and especially now that a lot of investors are leaving the country, even access to loan is really drying up, and I feel like in fact is the time to help out, but it's trying to balance.
You just have to pivot online, right? The relationship building.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
have the relationships. You've been on the ground. People know you, they trust you. You can always come back. And I mean, I've not been in your situation. I've been in a coup, not in my home country. But sometimes when we're in a situation, we kind of normalize some of the things that just aren't normal. So just know that you can still help and support people out from outside of the country, and then once things improve, you can return, and you're not letting anyone down by doing that. You're taking care of yourself, and you're actually
Peace
helping
of
them in
mind.
the end. Yeah.
And you have a
I mean,
better peace
Lakeisha,
of mind to get things done.
you of course you're referring in a kind way here to be supportive to Messi. But for those not knowing what that means, that I've got a friend of mine, for example, was living in Myanmar and had to leave suddenly. Yeah, so this is a brutal way when you basically the nucleus, your friends, your business and everything is kind of falling apart because of a political hiccup, again a serious one. So it's just something for us to learn from. And thank you for sharing it, Messi. But very difficult.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And now at least I'm also feeling responsible for my husband, right? Because he's like, I'm not leaving if you don't leave. So, and now if I say, can we wait a bit more? Then he's staying because of me. And if something happens, I will feel guilty. So I am taking as well that. So yeah, we are thinking. So like everybody says, thank you everyone for the
Yes, take
support.
care. Big hug to you, Messi. Big hug.
Take
Thank
care.
you,
Positive
thank
energy
you,
sent to you again today. You need more.
thank you everyone.
Okay. Okay, Tyler.
Yeah.
Airborne.
Did I see Ken somewhere? Where did I?
Oh, let me see.
There he is. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So last night, or 12 hours ago, when we were um, when we met previously, I had to run out a little early to go to an event, and it was a party actually. But
That's not.
when I got there, it was a whole bunch of people I hadn't seen in many years, and it was a very pleasant surprise. And one of the people there um, is a friend who is one of the co-founders of King, which is the game company that made Candy Crush. And he he's working on something new. He's no longer working at King.
Let me
And
guess. Metaverse?
no, guess.
No.
It's relevant to tech news. But take another guess.
Relevant to tech news. Crowdsourcing of news?
No,
Something
he's
like
making
Substack?
a fully autonomous ice cream shop.
Ooh, I love it. Hey,
How
we
is
need
that
to tell
relevant to
Todd
tech news?
McLeese about that because his mom invented cookies and cream. She needs to get all over that.
Oh yeah, he
That's
loves all, he
that's
loves
difficult.
all the sweet stuff.
That's difficult to supply in metaverse. Ice.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Sweet
so
tooth. Candy, ice cream.
when he said that, I was like, "Oh, do you know about the pizza place in Paris?" He's all, "Yeah, that's my friend. We talk once a month. We have a scheduled meeting every month." And
Autonomous ice cream, meaning what? They make the ice cream autonomously or just serve the ice cream autonomously?
it's a robotic arm that
To
makes
serve it, to serve
that
the
I think
serves the ice
gelato.
cream. Yeah,
they will do it from the original material. That means maybe the vanilla, the milk, and the oil ingredient from the beginning.
Well, it depends on the quality of the ice cream. I think the Japanese convenience store ice cream are quite nice already. We don't really need Autobot to do it.
I
We
love
can just
giant cone. Yeah, but
grab and go.
the so when he said that, I was like, "Oh wow, this is an area I think is very interesting." And do you know about the pizza restaurant over here and the Cafe X
Yeah.
cafe over there, and we talked for quite a while. And he's coming quite a long ways, and he's doing something very clever. You know how we were talking about shipping containers a couple days ago, and how they're
Yes.
standardized around the world or whatever. So he's building the store inside of one of the 20-foot shipping containers, which is like a half size shipping container.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really beautiful. So that way it's totally a standard thing. He can build them in a factory somewhere, put it on a boat, ship them all around the world and have thousands of locations set up. As soon as one location, it works very well, then you can replicate it thousands of times and then ship the store wherever you want it to go.
Oh, that's smart.
It's
then you can go to all those
smart.
matsuri, right? All those matsuri.
Oh, so here's the best part. And it
can be at the car park?
Yeah, so here's the best part. So I was like, well, tell me the story. How'd that happen? He goes, well, I stepped down from the role at Candy Crush and, was thinking he thought he was going to take a while to figure out what he wanted to do next. And just a few days later, he was already getting anxious and eager to do something. And he always loved the robotic arm thing. And so that pizza shop in Paris has been working on that for 7 years, right? Which we read in the article. It said that. And he emailed them 4 years ago saying, hey, I'm the co-founder of Candy Crush, and I love what you're doing with this robotic pizza thing. I would love to learn more. Da, 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 da. Well, they never responded. And then more recently, a few months ago, there was an article and he did an interview in the Financial Times, whatever. And he mentioned, something about robotics or whatever. And the guy from the pizza place read the article, remembered the name, went back to the email, and now recently replied to this email that's 4 years old and saying, sorry for the slow response.
The PR works.
But
for this case,
let's meet. So they did. So they met in Barcelona recently. They became fast friends. And in part, he says part of the reason he's building this company is because that guy never responded. Like he went ahead, had the guy responded immediately. He wanted to invest in it actually, which is why he reached out to him. And a couple of other funny. So then he knows, because he's a Swedish guy, obviously, that the biggest company in the world in robotics is a Swedish company called ABB. They make all the robotic arms, since the 70s. And so he goes to the ABB website, calls the typical number that anyone would see on the front of the ABB website and calls it and says, I want to buy a robotic arm. And they're like, well, who are you? And he's like, well, I'm the co-founder of Candy Crush, which is a Swedish company also. We're like down the street from you. And every Swede knows this company. Like, this is like, one of Sweden's, proudest unicorns, And they're like, yeah, well, that's not exactly how it works. You can't just call ABB and ask to buy a robotic arm. So, well, I guess we can't really help you. And so then he finds a Chinese company that's making them for $1,500. And he bought one. And now he's... And right before he said that, I go, China is starting to make these $1,000 robotic arms. He's like, oh, very much I know that. I just bought one for $1,500. And then we got talking about the software and how Google's making a new company dedicated to making the software super simple to program them and blah, 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 blah. But totally brilliant to do the shipping container. That part, I had not put those two pieces together. That's genius. Like, make a kiosk in a standard size shipping container. You might as well just use the actual shipping container as the actual, cut almost like a food truck, so that you can export that all over the planet. And then you can get temporary permits to put them in parks, wherever, and ship them all over the world all the time. It's freaking brilliant. Anyway. So,
by the way, I have a friend in Singapore. He's also doing something similar. They're doing robot barista for gourmet coffee. They actually are quite lucky. They got it was after 2 years. They got a joint venture with JR East. So now they are launching all this robot barista in Japan. I believe coffee and ice cream, there should be some synergy, right? So if your friend needs help in Japan, maybe I can connect. They can just talk directly.
I'm sure he would like to know that. I showed him the Neuro car, the little delivery bot car that's popular from China. They just raised 600 million. Yes. He had not seen it. He's like, oh, that's perfect. I could use that to deliver ice cream in the neighborhood. I was like, yeah, might as well.
Yep. A smart way to do it is he should approach all those real estate property. That means those people who own real estate, for example, the train stations. I mean, the train operators, because they already have space and they have traffic, right? Yeah. So straight away they can just deliver. Okay, good. Let's go.
Okay, so the top story today, again, a very happy Friday, November 12th, 2021. The top story is that Google researchers found a watering hole attack, which I'll explain what that is in a second, in August, exploiting a Mac OS 0-day and targeting Hong Kong pro-democracy websites. Oh, geez, I wonder who's going after the Hong Kong pro-democracy movement. Gosh, what a now there's a tech news Jeopardy. I wonder if it's Lithuania. So Google's now saying, oh, somebody's going after the Hong Kong pro-democracy folks, and they found a way to attack, to get into their Mac laptops, Mac OS, in a 0-day, which means they never knew that they were infected. And they didn't click anything to accept being accepted. And it says it was done through a watering hole attack. What a watering hole attack is they'll somehow monitor where you're likely to go. So if somebody does a watering hole attack against, let's say Cheryl, let's say Lakeisha does a watering hole attack against Cheryl, Lakeisha would first try and figure out which websites Cheryl goes to, and then infect one of the websites that Cheryl goes to. And so next time Cheryl goes to that website, which she has been going to all along, and that website's an actual normal website, but the website got hacked, and now the hacked website is sending a virus to Cheryl's computer. And in this case, I imagine what they did was they know that the Hong Kong pro-democracy folks had their own websites, and their own websites probably weren't that secure because they're brand new and were made by, rather, in rudimentary kind of ways. So they probably infected their own websites to infect their, the hackers did the watering hole attack against the Hong Kong pro-democracy websites and installed viruses and malware into the Hong Kong pro-democracy sites so that anyone who went to those sites would then get their computers infected. So it's a very clever way for a government or whoever the hacker is to infect all the visitors to the Hong Kong pro-democracy sites and then get inside their computers and see everything that they want to see. So the big question is, who would do such a thing? It's a real puzzle. The world may never know. And interesting that Google's revealing that this happened. Says the nature of the activity and targeting is consistent with the government-backed actor. Wow, that really makes it harder to figure out. Jeez. I was thinking it might be, McDonald's or Burger King or somebody, but not the government. Jeez. Wow.
I would estimate it is the Vatican.
The Vatican.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pope. Yeah, he's quite a hacker, that guy. He's, wow.
Very tech savvy.
Very super tech savvy. Grandmaster hacker. He's a 33 order black belt hacker, the Pope. On Thursday, Google's threat analysis group, the company's elite team of hacker hunters, published a report detailing the hacking campaign. The researchers didn't go as far as pointing the finger at specific hacking groups or countries, but they said it was a quote-unquote well-researched group, likely state-backed. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We do not have enough technical evidence to provide attribution, and we do not speculate about attribution, and nor could you, even if you wanted to, if that state-backed organization, had a lot of Android smartphones, for example. You would, because if you were to name them, they might all of a sudden decide that they don't allow Android phones anymore. However, the nature of the activity and the targeting is consistent with a government-backed actor. So if you can figure out who they might be referring to, please send me a DM, because we're stumped. It's a real puzzle wrapped in an inside of an enigma. Maybe we could use an AI to unravel this real incredible mystery.
Is that why You didn't make it a Jeopardy, so you don't want me to win?
Something tells me we would all win this one, Messi.
Because
So,
already pinned the article on top, so too late.
yeah. There's a bunch of tweets. Let's see. See if anyone says anything interesting in the tweets here. Oh, so somebody named Wang Maya on Twitter says in her tweet, Chinese government has hacked Hong Kong people's Apple devices en masse using watering hole attacks. Any devices that visited a Hong Kong-based media or pro-democracy website are affected. Well, how'd you come to that conclusion, Maya? Here, I'll tweet that out.
Does that include South China Morning Post?
That's from, well, Wired has covered this article saying hackers targeted Apple devices in Hong Kong for widespread attack. Visitors to pro-democracy sites in Hong Kong were infected with malware that could download files, steal data, and more. And Maya's got a really interesting take. She thinks it's the Chinese government. So I don't know how she came to that conclusion. That seems like a far stretch. But let's see who else is tweeting about this. Yeah, people are saying China. This is really strange. People in Hong Kong are saying it's China, which is, I don't know. Maybe they would know. Maybe they know something. Maybe they know something we don't. So the next article is that Universal Music Group says it's creating a quote-unquote band called Kingship out of 4 Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT characters and plans to release them in video games, VR, and more. Kingship, consisting of 4 virtual apes, reimagines the idea of a band. Well, you could say it reimagines, or you could say it just completely minimizes the idea of a band. I guess it's, you know what? I guess it's the Alvin and the Chipmunks of the NFT era. That's the closest thing I can think of. The world's largest music company has created a band of 4 virtual apes. We read this headline when we met 12 hours ago, and I have a new thought that I didn't have when we covered this 12 hours ago, which is record labels are constantly looking for talent, which they perceive of as sometimes rather disposable. And yet, I'm realizing now they would prefer a group that ideally would never age and ideally was incredibly easy to control and manipulate, where they didn't have to even, negotiate with the artist, because the artist is kind of greedy and wants money and all these things. So in the world of virtual avatars, virtual influencers, where they could make a synthetic artist, I think even far better than these, just little illustration images of these monkeys, these stoned apes or whatever they are. They can make much more lifelike virtual celebrities like we're seeing in Asia, some of which are getting very popular. There's one in Japan that's incredibly popular. There's others in China that are incredibly popular. And how long before music industry artists are no longer actual humans, but are virtual, lab-grown digital artists, because then the label gets all the money. They don't have to give the usual 10 to 15% royalties to the artist, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to other types of labor laws or obligations, right? So if you're not dealing with people, then it removes part of, those costs associated with actually hiring and interacting with people.
Right, because there's kind of 2 types of artists who get record deals, and I'm speaking of somebody who did that. There's artists who actually build up their own audience, their own fan base, and then the kind of the record label executives, due to just simple greed, want a piece of that, and they wine and dine you and try to convince you to partner with them, and they can help you grow things faster than you already have been. And then there's a different style of artist which doesn't really have any fan base, but they just seem like a personality who, kind of like a Britney Spears type, or even like a BTS type, where it's like a totally fabricated, almost a lab grown, but using humans, right? And by the way, Japanese pop, J-pop, has been doing that for a very long time. Where you have Tempopo and all of these J-pop groups that are made up of groups of girls. Sometimes a dozen young ladies are in one group. And Morning Musume, for example, and these artists have been huge in Japan for decades, but they're completely fabricated. Literally 12 young girls make up the group, and they completely recycle. Girls come in and out of the group quite regularly, as you can imagine. After every year or so, one of them falls out, and then someone else comes in to replace them, and they go on and on. So the point is these lab-grown, quote-unquote, artists that have become incredibly popular. Like I said, Morning Musume and Tampopo, those are huge acts in Japan. And Korea has similar things going on now with BTS and Blackpink and etc. Although those are smaller groups, and the fans get more attached to the individuals in those smaller groups. But the point's the same: is they're not based on artists who had grown their own organic fan base. They're laboratory constructed entities. And if we're going to do that, why do it with humans when you can likely have a similar effect with a lab-grown digital virtual artist? We're already seeing this in Instagram and TikTok. There's some wildly popular virtual artists in Instagram, because then it's the label owns the artist in a way that they could only fantasize about doing with a human.
Yeah, but Tyler,
Yes.
this already exists, just like you said. Like have
Yeah.
that in Japanese, they call the nijigen, so the two-dimensional idols. And now with those hologram technologies, now it's three-dimensional idol. But sometimes we idol somebody because we look up to him or her. So that means the connection between human beings. So if it's a totally virtual idol, so what do we look up to sometimes? You mean, for example, like a great singer, a greatest singer in the history? So maybe who wants to be a singer, this connection between human beings makes it real. It makes a dream even real. I mean, the connection between human beings, it lacks in this scenario. So I think both systems will exist, especially just like you said, the big brand, big labels will try to create those who will create benefits for them totally. But in the same time, I still think the singers, the idols, the actors from the real people will still exist because we are human beings. Thank you, that's my.
Yeah.
Oh,
The ones
who was that?
the ones who build their own organic loyal following will obviously continue to exist. But I think the ones that are laboratory grown, the label has an additional advantage in growing them virtually rather than humans. Because and BG, who just joined us on stage, this seems like you might have a thought on this topic.
Yeah, hi, this is Zoe. Two part on this topic. First of all, the virtual idol definitely have a bigger market because we're entering the metaverse. In the metaverse, it's a total virtual world. So no matter you are a real human being or you're grown from the lab, so we all look virtual in metaverse. So huge market there. Second part, yeah, the human idol will exist because we're human. Our body is human, so we need a human connection. And emotionally, we want to connect with someone. So that's why Clubhouse is so popular, because we talk to a real human. If we talk to a chatbot, we won't gather here so closely. Yeah, that's all. That's all my thought.
I wonder from a psychological domain. So I go back to like the Disney characters, right? That most kids, they either
Ooh,
like
great point.
Disney or Hello Kitty, or, even if they know that they're not real, but they're still kind of real. And then, something happens as we hit, adolescence, and it's like, oh, well, I no longer like Mickey, right? But I wonder if there's still something deep within our psyche that could have this affinity to something that we know that isn't real. I mean, if I see my favorite childhood character even as an adult, there's a special place for that character, and I can't think of who that is right now or what that is. But if I see a cartoon that I used to watch when I was a child, right there's still that different kind of space for that character. And so I'm just curious, just from a psychological standpoint, if these people that are developing these lab created pop stars, if you will, if they're able to tap into that psychological part of us that wants a special kind of connection, even if we don't know that it's real as adults, I think that could be something really interesting to explore.
Yeah, there's another element to it, which is obviously the music itself, which has traditionally always been human, although that is changing. And I'm telling you, as somebody who writes music, and I've had these debates two times in Clubhouse. And interestingly, joining my side of the argument were people who had record deals and publishing deals, and we were arguing against people who've never written a song. So if you talk to people who actually have, get publishing deals for writing songs, we will tell you this is coming very quickly. If you talk to people who've never written a song, they'll be like, oh, but it's so hard and there's no way that a computer can write a song. No. As professional songwriters, we are telling you this is coming, and not slowly. And if you, as a songwriter, who's many of my dearest friends are all songwriters, some of them the biggest songwriters in the world, we talk about how there is a real formula to songwriting. I know people like to think, who've never written songs, that it's some crazy unimaginable process of alchemy, and in the reality is it's an incredibly formulaic process. It's very, very there's a real formula and process to it, and it's discernible, and you can learn it. And some people are much better at it than others. Some are kind of have a natural propensity for it. But those of us who have written songs, and even become financially rewarded for doing so, we believe that those of us who some songwriters are not geeks. Some songwriters, some small percentage of songwriters, are geeks and understand technology, because tech got into music in a very big way in the 90s. Like all the music production is done inside of computers ever since about 2002, when Pro Tools started getting very popular. And we've been using computers for all the music production for decades now. So there's a lot of musicians and songwriters who are geeks. And my point is, the geek songwriters will be the first ones to tell you, oh, yes, for sure, this is going to happen in the not distant future, where songs will be written by the computers themselves. And my point in saying that is that, for example, there already are OpenAI is already composing songs completely algorithmically and posting them to a SoundCloud account. And I challenge you to write a better song than OpenAI, their songwriting bot, can write rather good songs. I wouldn't say great songs, but better than you can do. Better than 99.999% of humans can do. Not as good as Paul McCartney could do, but no one else can do what, as good as Paul McCartney can do. So, or Max Martin, who lives here in Stockholm, who just passed Paul McCartney's record for the most #1 hit songs of all time. So It's just in the absolute embryonic stage of that development, and it will grow very quickly because there's
And
a
if
lot
it can be personalized, Tyler, I think that
right.
really, so I cut you off. Go ahead. Go
No.
ahead.
My point is the labels will invest in this algorithm song creation and digital influencer artists and combine the two, and then poof, they not only do they get the complete control of the quote unquote artist, they also don't have to pay for the publishing deals to constantly wonder if who's going to spit out the next song that they need to go the eggs out of the golden geese, so to speak. So this
Tyler, we
So
had
my
Tyler.
I guess my
Sorry.
point to that, just to, if we were to extend it one level, so based on everything that you've just said, imagine if these creators or developers could actually create these personalized versions of these artists, of these lab created artists, right? So if I think about the progression of pop stars, let's say over the past 20, 30, 40 years, they used to be really hands off, like Michael Jackson. The reason that the moonwalk, MTV show or whatever that was so iconic was because we only saw those artists once a year. There was no internet. Maybe if they were on the cover of a magazine, but it was a very like depersonalized experience. So when we were able to see them perform, something really special. And over the past 20 years with the internet and people being on social, and we're able to have a more kind of engaged experience with artists. But if we were to take exactly what you've just said, but to personalize it to the extent that people could have their own interpersonal relationships with their favorite artists that could be customized for different fans, that would be the penultimate, kind of interaction between the artist and fans. Artists in this case, that would be lab created AI, but they can interact in the metaverse. I think that could be really, really cool.
You could also
Yeah, it's also
Hold on, Florian.
sorry, Florian, you could also algorithmically create 10 or 20 slightly different versions of the same algorithmically created music and then push them all out at once across a network like TikTok, for instance, and whichever one is the most popular and trends the best, that's the one you go with. You got this basic like A/B testing, live A/B testing for music creation.
Yeah, and endless iteration. Yeah, Florian.
yes. Again, I'm a hobby musician, but I fully agree to what you say. So successful songs have a pattern. You remember that there's this famous YouTube video of the 4-chord song.
Oh yes,
Where
Blink
they're hammering out
182. Oh my
60
God.
songs.
Yes.
Yeah, 60
Yes.
songs with the same 4 chords, and they're all
Yes.
known, and you sing them all. That's one part. The second
Yeah.
is also we had about 3 years. 3 years ago, there's always this AI for Good summit happening here in Geneva, where it's organized by the International Telecommunications Union, and which is the oldest UN agency, even before the UN existed here, and that's why we are all talking here, is because they're regulating body of telecommunication in the world, and they do a big AI for Good summit, where you have scientists, investors, technology, everybody meets here and discusses latest technologies, thoughts, how to use actually AI for the greater good of humanity and the planet. And there was an experimental lab where they had actually songs created by AI, and then others which weren't, and we would have to differentiate which one is man-made and which one is AI-made, and it was impossible to differentiate. Also, there was then some real artists who actually played together with some AI musicians, in the same sense, and it was really weird because it's all great because the patterns are extremely easy and similar. So it's not very difficult to pump out a pop song or something like that, or a jazz song or something. And probably AI has the advantage also that they can create something new to making sure that we are not copying something from the past. So I fully agree that there's a whole new way of actually musicians itself to use AI in order to create new artwork,
Totally.
which is amazing.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and you bring up a great point. I should have mentioned that if somebody can find that video there's a particular 4-chord pattern. There's these chord patterns, like a 1-4-5, which is the blues. Basically, the blues is essentially mathematically one very incredibly simple formula.
That's what I play. It's
right,
basically it's always the same
yes,
in different chords. Yeah,
The
basically
chords and then the format, right? So I remember
correct.
from way back in the day, it's like
16-bar blues.
ABA, right?
Yep,
ABA coda.
16-bar blues, which is basically every blues song you've ever heard from a computer's standpoint, is the same song. And there's hundreds, really thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of variations of the 16 4-chord 1-4-5 blues song. And then you have jazz standards as well, which is their same, sequence of chords. But this one particular pop song pattern, which I'm trying to remember the chord arrangement of it, is somebody in the audience will know for sure.
Yeah, but maybe Cheryl, if you could help to pin it, because if you look up on YouTube, the Axis of Awesome is the group called, Australian group, and they do have the 4-chord song, and it's really fun to watch.
1-4-5-2, I believe, is the chord arrangement.
Tyler is looking for it.
I'm not looking for it. I've seen the video, but that particular 4-chord pattern is become. If you want to write a hit pop song, that's a great place to start because my God, have there been hundreds of hit pop songs that use that chord arrangement, and you think they're all different songs. Well, the lyrics are different. The melody of the vocal on top of the 4 chords varies, but the essential music part under the vocals is essentially the same. So, let's get into the next article here. That's a great point, Florian. Thank you for that. The next one is that Amazon will let Amazon Prime users on iOS share video clips up to 30 seconds long for some of its content. So many people who aren't Amazon Prime members don't know that Amazon Prime competes with Netflix and the like. They have a library of content, and they're not fooling around. They recently bought MGM Studios, one of Hollywood's, Metro Golden Mares, one of the OG legit, Hollywood studios. And they're building a content library, and they are not screwing around, as Amazon does not do. They go big or they go home, and they're not going home with competing with Netflix and Disney Plus and the like. They're buying major Hollywood studios as evidence of that. And the interesting point here, they continue to finance. They go to all the film festivals. They try to acquire the rights to all the best films at all the best film festivals. They're, as they are a very shrewd competitor. And now with the Amazon, they're going to let Prime users who have the video streaming service on iOS, they can share video clips up to 30 seconds long for some of that content, which is a really interesting idea. It would be like as if Netflix let you share 30-second clips from Squid Game, for example, which, now that I think about it, that's kind of a genius idea, actually, especially if
it's really clever.
Yeah,
it's really, really clever. It's getting your audience to do your PR for you.
Right.
Like this is how Snapchat and TikTok and all of that work. You get the army of the public to do your PR for you. This is really clever.
I mean, I can just imagine how many times I would have seen the red light, green light Squid Game, clips had should Netflix do the same. And I imagine they will. I mean, they're going to, everyone in the streaming space, especially Disney and Hulu and Netflix and everybody, are certainly going to watch how this plays out with a lot of interest.
So I've got 2 thoughts on this. Oh, sorry, Tyler, I thought you don't go.
Oh, I'm just thinking just like you are, which is because it's 30-second clips, you have to imagine a lot of those are going to end up in TikTok. And
well, exactly. Like, what's going to be the legalities of that? I'm curious. Like, are Amazon able to? Can they, if by making this shareable, will it be allowed? Do you see what I mean? There's content rights and everything else across the platforms that you'll be sharing it across.
It's interesting. Going back to the music side for a second, and the intellectual property side of it, or the copyright side of it, which is if in YouTube land, for example, prior to YouTube, there were other video platforms like Veo, a dear friend of mine, Dimitri Shapiro, and there was Daily Motion out of France, and there was Rever, Steven out of Los Angeles. And there was, a dozen YouTube contemporaries who all died. And YouTube did not die. And why is that? Well, one interesting reason, super interesting reason, was because the big record labels, Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group, sued the shit out of those YouTube competitors. My friend Dimitri Shapiro, they were trying to sue him for somewhere in the neighborhood of billions of dollars because he had their content on his platform. And that's not legal. You don't have a license to do that. We are suing you for billions of dollars. So YouTube was actually a little later in the focus. It was the record labels had to kind of go one at a time in these big lawsuits to shut down these video sites who had their content. And then they eventually got around to YouTube, and the geniuses at Google who had just acquired YouTube cooked up a really interesting solution, which is, hey, listen, yes, we have your content on our platform. However, what if we run advertisements before or after your content and we give you that money? Do you like money? Oh, you do? Oh, that's nice. How about we give you millions of dollars a year that you're not getting now for doing nothing? How's that sound? And they took it. They said, oh, okay, you can do that? Right. Well, check this out. It gets even better because thousands of people are uploading your content every day, and we can take it all down, and we will happily do that if that's what you insist. Poof, magic, we can do that. We'll make sure that never happens again. Our apologies. We have safe harbor clause. Rather than, if we remove it all right now, or we leave it up and we pay you every time somebody looks at any of it. And how's that sound? And that's what they did. So if anybody uploads a Taylor Swift video, the platform recognizes, that's Taylor Swift's content. She owns that piece of content, not the person who uploaded it. So the person who uploaded it does not get any money for that video. Taylor Swift gets the money. And now Taylor Swift actually likes it when thousands of people upload her songs. More the better, because she's going to get paid for her art. So that was the clever bit. Now, this could potentially apply in a similar way to Amazon. If Amazon owns Squid Game, if Netflix, for example, if Netflix owned Squid Game, well, they do in some way, and people start uploading, clips of Squid Game to YouTube, for example, or TikTok or whatever, and then these video platforms start paying the actual, using the Shazam-like feature. They call it Content ID system. It's like a fingerprinting system. Normally, they look at the audio file because the audio file has a very distinct pattern. That's how Shazam works. It's like an audio fingerprint of the sound file. But they're starting to be able to do the same with the video content. So if they can identify the content, recognize who is the actual copyright owner of that content, and pay them for it, not only is this genius PR, it potentially could be paid PR, where if Netflix did this with Squid Game, all of the Squid Game uploads would actually, if there were ads on that content, that money would go to the copyright holder, the content owner, rather than the uploader, in the same way that it's done with music. And that would be truly brilliant. I'm somebody in the audience might know more than I do on this topic. So, Sam's back. Welcome back, Sam. And welcome back, Susie. So, next article is that Ethereum...
I was just talking about this today. It looks like this is a trend. This clips thing is going to be a trend. We see it in Clubhouse. We see it in Amazon now. And it's going to be everywhere. This is free advertising. An influencer takes a small clip, and now suddenly, this influencer used to be paid a lot of money to get your message across. Now this guy is doing it to you for free. Who says no to free advertising?
Yeah. So Ethereum...
Tyler, can I add a little bit more? Because I just have a conversation with my friend who is a podcaster. So he said in YouTube, they provide some free background music, right?
Yes.
But the music is not permanently signed with YouTube. So he said, like, for example, like may sign the contract once a year. So if you use it like last year and this year, they might start to claim their copyright. So just like you said, if you use their music, then you're if you have the advertisement on, then the profit goes to that person. So he told me that's very tricky. If you don't know that, if in the future you want to benefit from the advertisement, but suddenly you realize that goes to that person. So I think that is a very tricky issue under YouTube. So it's something related. So I just want to say that.
It's not sudden. YouTube will let you know that. They will let you know that it's going to this content creator because it's their copyright. It's copyrighted material.
Yeah, but from the because originally it was a free background music, but you think you can use it permanently, but no, not like that.
Next up is Discord CEO says that Discord has no plans to add crypto and NFT tools following a backlash to an internal concept he shared on Twitter. He kind of teased on Twitter that it might be coming to Discord, and then the community expressed rather loudly they don't want it, and so now he's walking that back. And the next one is that Google creates a new labs team under Clay Bavor, comprising its Area 120 incubator, AR and VR efforts, and Project Starline holographic video booth. So this is clearly some Google metaverse stuff going on here. And as I said yesterday, holy cow, you get major headlines of major companies going big right now into AR, VR. Yesterday, there were two headlines. We had, in the span of 24 hours, you had Pokemon Go's, the parent company Niantic, going big with their own platform called, what is it, Starlight or something like that? And who was the other big platform that announced they were getting? NVIDIA creates a new platform. Oh, and Unity acquired Peter Jackson's Weta Digital video effects company for $1 billion or whatnot. So, and then today, Google moves AR and VR into new labs team. It says Google Labs is back, but this time around, it's not a consumer-facing brand delivering a range of experimental products. Instead, it's the internal name given to a new team at Google created under a reorganization that aims to gather the company's many innovative projects and long-term bets under one roof. The new group will be led by Clay Bavor, the veteran Googler and VP, whose most recent role has seen him leading the company's forward-looking efforts in virtual and augmented reality, including its cutting-edge holographic video conferencing project known as Project Starline. Bavor will lead the new organization that will contain Google's existing AR and VR efforts, its futuristic Starline, its in-house incubator called Area 120, as well as any other high-potential long-term projects. He will report directly to Google CEO Sundar Pichai. Launched in 2016, Area 120 was envisioned as a way to better retain entrepreneurial-minded talent at Google, meaning ones who might leave and start their own startups, while giving teams the ability to test out new ideas while still having access to Google's data, products, and resources. Over the years, the organization has cranked out a number of successful projects and exits, including the HTML5 gaming platform for emerging markets called GameSnacks, now integrated with Google Chrome, the technical interview platform Byteboard, and currently Area 120 is incubating projects like the workplace video platform Threadit, Spectrum Marketplace Orion, Document Scanner Stack, and many more. At any given time, it has around 20 projects underway, though not all of them are made public. So there you go. The next one is from Wired, a profile of CryptoPunks, an NFT project founded by two Canadian developers in 2017, which has reached $1.5 billion in lifetime sales as NFTs explode in popularity. And this is for those who don't know about CryptoPunks, it's kind of the OG NFT. It was a series of 10,000 crazy little faces of which we have Ida, I believe, in the audience, has a very CryptoPunk-inspired avatar. I don't know, is she with us today? I don't see her. And yeah, so these 10,000 faces were generated, and they're all a bit unique. You can think of them like digital Cabbage Patch dolls or something like that. And they were all put on a blockchain, and you can own them and you can trade them. And now some of them are trading for many, many millions of dollars, like absurd amounts. And collectively, yeah, they have more than $1 billion in transactions thus far between them. Yeah, it's been replicated now many times, essentially, by other folks who want to make a lot of money very quickly. So you've got the Bored Apes and the crypto cats and the stoner cats and whatever. There's tons of them. So there's a profile on CryptoPunks for those who want the backstory. You've got Wired doing that deep dive profile piece. And the next one is from the Wall Street Journal. And the headline says, "A look at Binance," which is the crypto exchange, with a rather interesting founder, CZ, who is a really curious fellow. And especially the way that he's operating that crypto exchange, Binance, where he doesn't seem to want to play friendly with governments. So the Wall Street Journal piece says, Binance, which sources say could be worth $300 billion if it goes public, as its unfettered, unregulated growth comes to an end amid global scrutiny. Yeah, well, here's why. Because governments don't want you operating in their territory in a lawless, anarchist way, as CZ, the main person behind Binance, seems to want to do. He doesn't seem to want to comply with any kind of governments and follow any of their rules and regulations and policies. He wants to operate as if he's on an open utopian internet. In the old school days, well, governments have figured out how technology works and how data works, and especially they're particularly sensitive around projects that touch on money and currencies and the exchanges of values of money. So if you're operating an exchange of values, whether they be crypto or otherwise, they're going to regulate that. And if you don't want to play by their rules, you will be shown the door. You are not welcome to do business in their territory. And that's what's happening. As much as he would like to operate, in a very unregulated, anarchistic way, that doesn't work anymore when you're doing a trade, an exchange of values here. The trading platform surged by operating from nowhere in particular, like on a boat in the middle of the ocean. That's literally how he's trying to operate the whole thing. He doesn't have an office anywhere, so we don't belong to any regulation anywhere. Yeah, well, that's a nice kind of Peter Pan fantasy. The reality is the government's going to control their citizens, and if their citizens are using their platform, they're going to make that illegal, as China did, and that's why you had to leave China, CZ, and you know it. And the whole world's going to work that way in the very near future. All these governments are all figuring this out simultaneously, and the countries where people are able to utilize Binance without government kind of interference is shrinking by the day. So what happens then? People are going to have to find ways to engage with Binance without the government's knowing. That's getting very, very difficult going forward. That opportunity is shrinking. And what else does it say? Now governments are insisting on taking control. Yeah, exactly, because they understand how tech works now. This could, 10 years ago, this could have worked. But not really anymore. So the world's fastest growing major financial exchange has no head office or formal address, lacks licenses in countries where it operates, and has a chief executive who until recently wouldn't answer questions about his location. Started just 4 years ago, Binance is the exchange giant that towers over the digital currency world, a crypto equivalent of the London, New York, and Hong Kong stock exchanges combined. After a burst of growth, Binance processes more trade for cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ether each day, 76 billion worth, than its 4 largest competitors put together, according to data provider Crypto Compare. The years of largely unfettered, unregulated growth for Binance in particular, and the crypto industry broadly, however, are coming to an end. Financial regulators increasingly worry that digital assets, until recently dismissed by some as a fad, have grown so quickly they are now systematically important. In an October speech, Bank of England official John Cunliffe brought up the 2008 subprime mortgage-fueled crisis and said of crypto, when something in the financial system is growing very fast and growing in largely unregulated space, financial stability authorities have to sit up and take notice. Binance is drawing the most regulatory attention. Authorities in a dozen countries have cautioned users in recent months that Binance is unregistered and not authorized to provide various services. The SEC is looking into how Binance conducts business in the United States, where it has many state licenses. According to former executives, the SEC has asked for a list of information from Binance's U.S. affiliate, including how it relates to the global organization, according to one of the executives. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is examining whether Binance has abetted money laundering. One former executive said. Bloomberg News previously reported the Department of Justice investigation. The SEC and the Department of Justice declined to comment. The American market presents a major test for the crypto exchange, which has indicated it hopes to take its U.S. arm public in a few years. A former financial regulator hired to build out Binance's American business, called Binance.us, resigned in August, just 3 months into the job. Yada, yada, yada. So it's a long piece, and hopefully Cheryl has pinned it to the room, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the future looks for Binance.
So I predict this is going to backfire. It's clear that the U.S. regulators are targeting a couple of organizations. Binance is one, and then the stablecoin Tether is another, in addition to XRP. But I think, just like we saw the Coinbase stock fall yesterday, people are waking up to the fact that you don't need to pay high commission rates. And you can do this on a decentralized exchange. And this is, in my opinion, is going to drive adoption to DeFi, and all of this is going to become decentralized.
Correct.
Tyler, it's a very interesting statement that Craig just said.
I agree.
Simply because while everything's going on Binance and the intention is Binance and Tether, you clearly could just see by the Twitter handles how many venture capital firms are, like, literally part the crypto pun, but they're aping in to programs that relate to DeFi. A perfect example is Centrifuge, that was just at Money 2020 in New York City, and Centrifuge has just gotten funded, and what they're going to be doing is being able to navigate real-world assets on DeFi. And they're very well funded, and they're very, very looked at by those folks, as Craig was saying. People want the decentralization, and they don't want to pay these massive, exuberant fees for work that the reality is it's going to machines, right? It's going to machines. So why are we still paying these large extra layer costs when there's no need to anymore? But now those smart VCs and those smart technologists and those smart people in the DeFi space are realizing that if you can't beat them, you have to join them. And that's why they're putting so much money. Solana's backed by VCs. When you look at Solana blockchain, the money that's come in for Solana has come in from venture capital funding. That's what's really giving its injection. So like when you think about Solana as a layer 2 solution that they think is the Ethereum killer, not really. I think there's going to be probably like one winner and two other chains, depending on your business case of what you need the chain for, will depend on what chain you go on. And I keep on giving the heads up, Tyler, that the derivatives market hasn't even stepped foot in yet. So you can imagine that's a quadrillion market that has not even chosen a blockchain yet. So just if we're moving that trajectory, as Craig said, I would be forward thinking and say, okay, well, what blockchain would be sufficient enough for the derivatives market? For the quadrillion, what blockchain could handle that? And quite frankly, the blockchain that could handle it right now, from all I've seen, is Ethereum. But of course, there could always be others that come in. And if those venture capital firms that have the money to invest and want to put their money into this new innovative developments get the best bang for their buck, where would they go?
Yeah, I agree. The decentralized exchange, but I mean, there eventually will be in exchanges and solutions that are engineered that governments can't control. It might, it'll be interesting to see how that. I mean, Pirate Bay is an interesting example. It still exists today as a huge middle finger to the record labels and movie studios. Because it's trading. You can get all the Netflix content, all the music you want, any piece of media you ever wanted is still on Pirate Bay, being traded. Adobe Photoshop,
Tyler.
Microsoft, everything, operating systems, all of it. The question is, how might you, or
Tyler,
yes, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but there is something that you just said right there that's super important about Pirate Bay and the fact that they will still exist. There was a headline that I tweeted out as well that there was inside the Bitcoin space, and I tweeted and I tagged Ben as well, that there was a blog or a post come out, an article that says, maybe it is better off holding Bitcoin than actually going through these platforms. And there was an article written about that because this is what you're describing. I think it's going to be a marriage of a number of exchanges and decentralized and centralized combined. And what you'll probably see is, yes, that regulation will come in, but as you just stated, there will always be the ones that will stay through the storm. And those that stay through the storm are going to be those people that probably also have been engaging with these decentralization platforms for a long time, and they're just going to be the OGs. And maybe 20 years from now, they're still going to be the OGs because the crypto version of a private bay, whatever that is, will still be there. It just won't go away. It just won't be as widely popular because it won't be as well known anymore, but it will still exist, and there still will be people that will be using them.
Okay, so what's next here? The next one is Biden signs the Secure Equipment Act of 2021, denying FCC licenses to national security threats, effectively banning Huawei and ZTE network equipment in the U.S. Oh, wow. Secure Equipment Act of 2021 received bipartisan support prior to being signed by Biden, denying FCC licenses to companies who they believe are national security threats, such as Huawei and ZTE. So now you don't have a choice because the government was telling you don't use Huawei or ZTE from China for telecom, and now they've gone so far as to make it illegal. They're officially banning it. The legislation will require FCC to adopt new rules that clarify it will no longer review or approve any authorization applications for networking equipment that pose national security threats. And last year, the FCC formally designated Huawei and ZTE as national security threats. Hence, therefore, by extension, that shit's now illegal. With that decision being made, as the agency found that both companies had close ties to the Chinese Communist Party and Chinese military apparatus. Since March, the FCC Commissioner, Brendan Carr, has made repeated calls for the legislation to be passed, saying at the time that the FCC has authorized 3,000 applications for Huawei networking equipment to be used. Here's a quote. Once we have determined that Huawei or other gear poses an unacceptable national security risk, it makes no sense to allow that exact same equipment to be purchased and inserted into our communication networks as long as federal dollars have been involved. The presence of these insecure devices in our networks is a threat, not the source of funding used to purchase them. Besides Huawei and ZTE, other Chinese companies flagged as national security threats are Hytera Communications, Hangzhou Hikvision Digital Technology Company, and Dahua Technology Companies. At the end of last month, the FCC, and by the way, Hikvision is the world's biggest camera company, and that's now illegal in the United States. We're talking millions, if not tens of millions of cameras, because they are national security threats. At the end of last month,
sorry.
Go ahead.
But I mean, because Biden and Xi Jinping, they are going to meet next Monday. So
they're going where?
I mean, they're They're going to meet later. So
Where?
this I tweeted a lot of news as well. There are which date is it? Oh, so they are going to meet on Monday. They are going to hold a virtual summit on Monday. Biden and Xi. So that's something interesting because Biden signed it yesterday. So they're gonna have a virtual summit on Monday. Not sure if they are gonna postpone it. So yeah, that's something related news.
Okay. Fine, I'm just reading the rest of the article. Okay, that's about the essence of that one. The next one is Spotify acquires audiobook distributor Findaway and says it expects the deal to close in the next 2 months, or next month, really. In an effort to expand beyond music, Spotify has been investing hundreds of millions to build out its podcasting business. Now the company has set its sights on another form of audio, which is audiobooks. And with today's acquisition of digital audiobook distributor Findaway, Spotify declined to share the financial terms of the deal, which is expected to close in the fourth quarter, subject to regulatory review and approval, which I don't see why there would be any problem there. Founded in 2004, Findaway's core focus has been on bringing more audiobooks to listeners worldwide. It today operates a collection of brands and products led by its large audiobook distribution business that connects content creators with reseller partners like Apple, Google, Audible, Nook, Rakuten, Storytel, which is a Spotify partner already, which was a Swedish company as well, Overdrive, Audiobooks.com, and dozens of other global brands. The brands under the Findaway umbrella include Findaway Voices, which connects authors and professional narrators, AudioWorks, which sees the company producing audio for top publishers, Playaway, which brings preloaded audiobooks products to libraries and schools, Orange Sky Audio, which works to bring a more diversified audio catalog to listeners, and Audio Engine, which offers tools and technology that allows developers to integrate a broad catalog of audiobooks into their own platforms. They're bringing the full team of around 150 to Spotify, it says, and then plans to build on Findaway's existing investments in the audio industry. It also plans to bring expanded access to audiobooks to Spotify's 381 million monthly active users. Here's the quote. With this acquisition, the plan is to accelerate into the audiobooks space by expanding our platform, says Spotify's head of audiobooks. He explained that today Spotify users tend to go to other platforms to access audiobooks, and it wants to enable that consumption to take place with Spotify's app itself. Initially, that may see Spotify users leveraging the company's new open access platform technology to authenticate with existing credentials to access audiobooks from Findaway and other audiobook partners like Storytel. So, for those who don't know, although the Swedes in the audience do know, that Spotify doesn't think of itself as a music company. Spotify thinks of itself, and its stated ambition is to own your ears. In the same way that many games want to own your eyeballs, most of the web is competing for your eyeballs. And it turns out you can multitask and use your eyes on the web and your ears with Spotify. And Spotify wants to monopolize and own your ears, your ear time. And they want to get into anything to do with your ears, which is why they have gone into audiobooks. And this was a very predictable thing for those who understand Spotify's kind of grand vision. And social audio, like this room we are in right now, which is why they bought a Clubhouse clone called Locker Room, which they rebranded as Green Room, which I still believe they're going to eventually integrate into the mother Spotify app. And there will be new tabs in the Spotify app. The Spotify app used to be exclusively music. And then they added a new tab called podcasts. And now they're adding another tab called audiobooks. And then they're going to add another tab called live. And now you're going to choose between music, podcasts, audiobooks, and live audio, as they call it, which is what we call social audio. And now your ears have a whole lot of options. And the reason this all works nicely together is because Spotify is building out an ad network. And this is a truly unique ad network because most ad networks are visual based. They're based on images that you click on and, ads that you read or click on. Spotify's ads are audio based, like radio ads. But they're much better than radio ads because they know at what point in the ad you skipped past it or didn't listen to it or changed or closed to the app or whatever. They know precisely how many people listen to the ad and who listen to the ad, and those ads can be targeted to individuals based on all kinds of really interesting characteristics, which radio could never do. Radio was one ad to every listener. Spotify's network is, just like in Google, advertisers can target very precisely who they want their ad to be listened to, so they're not being wasteful with their money. They can be very precise and only target the people they want to target. So you get a really good return on your money for audio ads in Spotify. And I believe audio ads are actually potentially much more engaging than visual ads. I think we've become rather numb to visual ads, and I think we are not at all numb to audio ads. So it's going to be interesting for Spotify, this whole audiobooks chapter that they're going into, no pun intended. Next article from Axios says that the United States joins a global cybersecurity partnership. Almost global. There's a couple countries not in it. I wonder if you can figure out who they are. Launched in 2018 with 80 countries and companies like Google and Microsoft after declining to sign up under Trump. The U.S. is now part of an international agreement on cybersecurity that the Trump administration declined to sign up for. 80 countries, along with hundreds of tech companies, including Microsoft and Google, nonprofits, and universities, have signed the Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace, established in 2018 to create international norms and laws for cybersecurity and warfare. The U.S. support of the voluntary Paris Call reflects the Biden administration's priority to renew and strengthen Americans' engagement with the international community on cyber issues, says the White House. It builds on the U.S. efforts to improve cybersecurity for citizens and businesses. This includes rallying G7 countries to hold accountable nations that harbor cyber criminals. Gee, I wonder who they're talking about. Canada. Supporting the update of NATO cyber policy for the first time in 7 years, and the recent counter-ransomware engagement with over 30 countries around the world to accelerate international cooperation to combat cybercrime. The Biden administration announced last month plans to create a Bureau of Cyberspace and Digital Policy and a new envoy to oversee critical and emerging technology, pending congressional approval. This was in response to several major hack attacks and other online crimes that struck the U.S. in recent months, notably ransomware assaults on American infrastructure. The Paris Call commitment followed Vice President Harris's meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris on Wednesday. During the meeting, they also agreed to establish a U.S.-France comprehensive dialogue on space to enhance civil, commercial, and national security space cooperation. Relations had become strained between Biden's administration and the French government over the U.S.-UK submarine deal with Australia, but President Biden smoothed things over with Macron during a meeting in Rome, where he described the submarine deal announcement as clumsy. Macron said during a joint news conference with Harris that his fruitful meeting with Biden paved the way for the coming weeks, months, and years. We were just discussing about the fact that we do share the view that we are at the beginning of a new era, and our cooperation is absolutely critical for this one. The vice president added, I think we share this belief that we are at the beginning of a new era, which presents us with many challenges, but also many opportunities. So there's an interesting aspect to this that's not mentioned, which is in this grand decoupling between the US and China and countries having to pick sides with which economy they want to be part of. By the way, Thailand just met with a US envoy and expressed its affection for America, because Thailand's one of these important countries that is kind of walking the fence between deciding which side they want to be on, and they don't want to pick a side. They want to play neutral and benefit from good relations with both sides, as they've done historically. And that's exactly why Thailand was never colonized, where all of its neighbors were, between France and Britain. And Thailand managed to walk that fence and be friendly with both France and Britain and prevent occupation. And that served Thailand incredibly well. So they would love to see that happen again here with China and the US. But it seems that even Thailand, with this recent meeting, is implying that China's economy doesn't seem as strong as it did even 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. And America and its allies might seem like a better economic ally. And I mention this because this global cybersecurity partnership starts to pave the way for the internet equivalent of this decoupling, where Russia is quickly building its version of the Chinese firewall, their own kind of closed internet. China very notably has its own closed internet, which they will soon kind of push onto Hong Kong and Macau and its other territories, Tibet and etc. And it'll be interesting to see if there becomes even 2 separate internets in a way. That's another interesting subtext to all of this that isn't mentioned or I think even understood by the journalists. The next one is that YouTube starts hiding public dislike counts. I think we read this yesterday. Yeah, we did. We had a very long debate about that. So the next one is Miami Mayor Francis Suarez says the city will give residents a Bitcoin yield from staking Miami coin. And boy, oh boy, it's the ever-going tit-for-tat between the mayors of Miami and New York City for who's going to be the capital of crypto in America. The city's mayor, Francis Suarez, announced the news on CoinDesk TV on Thursday. The city of Miami will soon give out a Bitcoin yield to its citizens for staking the Miami coin. Hey, May, you have a thought on that? If May is still with us, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting person. I saw him speak at the Bitcoin conference. Also, his head of, there was a female that's also kind of heading up and championing this whole concept forward. But in being a New Yorker and also understanding that Miami is filled with New Yorkers, I think Mayor Suarez is doing something really fascinating because there's a hell of a lot of minorities in Miami. And there is also a lot of people moving from the financial space down to Miami. So he's luring a lot of people with talent to come down to work in Miami. So I think he's got a good edge up on New York right now because the mayor candidate in New York is, and I see what he's doing, but I think he's like a little bit behind what New York City needs. And I think AOC kind of does a good job, and Sanders does a good job of kind of identifying what New York City needs by the residents of New York that are native New Yorkers and stuff, and those that understand the ecosystem of New York. Suarez understands the ecosystem of Miami and knows that he's got the boats coming in, he's got a hub there, and he also knows that a lot of young people are in Miami. And most of those guys that were in LA, a couple of them like Felix Hartman, Sam Bankman-Fried, they all have come out to Miami. So his city is getting a lot of interest. And it's getting a lot of interest from new money as well and old money. So it'll be very interesting to see how they win. But I think it's going to be Miami for the win. I think Miami will be the first one to kind of take that. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I think Miami is based on how things are going. And he seems to be, the Miami mayor, Francis Suarez, seems more directly in cahoots with Jack and Brian Armstrong.
Sam. Yeah, I mean, he's really got some serious connections down there from that conference. And I think so Tyler, you know very well that we always go down these rabbit holes and we make hypotheses. I'm almost positive that Suarez was having tons of meetings last summer to prep for this. I would not put it past him. He's quite young. He's innovative. He's Cuban, I believe. I think he's Cuban. So I think at the end of the day, he's hustling. And they were doing it in English and Spanish. So this is very fascinating to see. So I'd be very interested to hear what you think and how he will move forward.
Well, you also have how crypto is being perceived, and Bitcoin in particular, in Latin America. And Miami is the cultural bridge to Latin America in the U.S. So,
and New York, though, too, for Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. So New York as well.
Yeah.
So I support Mayor Suarez and also the mayor. Is it the mayor of New York? Both of these guys. I think in particular Suarez is ahead of his time. But this Miami coin, I do not support. I looked into it some time ago, and I mean, first of all, in my humble opinion, 95%, if not more, of all cryptocurrencies are going to be worth little to nothing in 5 years' time. And I would put Miami coin in that boat. I think I looked into the total supply versus the circulating supply. These are really just nothing but ways for cities or organizations to print money. I support his efforts on the Bitcoin side or Ethereum side, but not with the Miami coin.
Craig, I think the Miami coin is quite interesting because if he uses Bitcoin, it seems, and I'm just going to talk really loosely because you know more in terms of the vernacular, but if he uses the Bitcoin to back that Miami coin, and Bitcoin is a deflationary asset that will increase in value because it only has 21 million, quite frankly, that Miami coin could be worth a hell of a lot more than if he puts it in a traditional financial instrument and vehicle of investment for the city. So I would probably, because 11 residences in Miami Beach are going to sell all those residences for Bitcoin because I was talking to them in Miami at the Bitcoin conference. So it'll be very interesting to see how he uses it. And that's what I would probably love to know, what his interest is. Like, for example, everyone's talking about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They're going to do a DeFi product. I mean, they're going to do a DeFi token. What makes them any different than Suarez in Miami? At least that's a city. Bored Ape Yacht Club is a project that was funded by, in essence, and please forgive me, a very rich person. So the person that ended up being behind the Bored Ape Yacht Club, great, it's all fine and dandy that people see the successful NFT project, but it's not like the two Canadians of CryptoPunks. The actual Bored Ape Yacht Club, because I saw it grow in this app, I saw them when they were like 0.25. 0.025. The challenge here is could we unpack it and peel back the layers to see what they're actually going to do in a utility? And that's where I would challenge what Mayor Suarez wants to do with that token and what value he's going to provide to the city residents of Miami.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if it was pegged 1-to-1 to Bitcoin, and the governance was such that it could never be changed. But I don't believe
Correct.
that's the case.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. It'd be interesting to do hell, I just feel like reaching out to his PR office and seeing if I could find a way to get him in here because he was super nice when I saw him at the Bitcoin conference in Miami and he was very approachable. I would just be curious to see how well he would want to explain that because I think for all those on the folks on the audience here and also on stage that understand finance and really kind of want to be like the debates, as Dave would say, debates are really about being able to sway the person to understand the value and vice versa, right? And that I think is super important to have these conversations now because we are clearly seeing that it's moving forward. It's moving fast. I mean, Bitcoin, I think, is already hitting 69, 70,000. So at some point, this is moving at a fast pace. And people need to start upskilling their education around these products and these instruments instead of, naysaying them. Not that you're doing that, but just instead of sort of saying like, oh, they're all nefarious, blah, 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 it'd be better to sort of kind of lean back and kind of be a bit more positive and see what the possibilities could exist and see what problems they're solving. And then from there, make your assessments and observations by critically thinking from the point of view of the constituents that he will be serving, which is the city of Miami and the employees of Miami City as well. So I think that's where it gets to be really interesting to have those deeper conversations. And Craig, like we mentioned in the back channel, I'm happy to do like a DeFi room in the mornings or like lunch and learn because I think it's important. I think there's a lot of people that want to learn about it and want to get involved in it. And I think they're just scared. And when you're scared of something, you freak out. You kind of get a little bit like salty and saucy. So why not just bring more people into the fold?
Point taken.
Okay. Next up is Patreon. Back in the news, the CEO of Patreon says, and for those who don't know, Patreon is, I think everyone does know, but in case there's people hiding under rocks over here, it's a way for consumers, digital consumers, to financially support. It's kind of a tip jar is what it is, so that creators have this tip jar platform called Patreon. And it's a website where, I don't have an account at Patreon, but I would say, oh, if you want to support tech news around the world, please go to our Patreon page and, give us $5 or whatever it is. And a lot of creators do that because their content is not monetizable on YouTube, for example. So there's a YouTube creator that I follow called LaoY86, who YouTube doesn't like his content. It's not illegal, so they can't take it down, but they don't allow him to monetize his videos. So he says, listen, I don't get any money from YouTube at all like everyone else does, so please go to my Patreon page if you want to support what we're doing. And a lot of people do that. Some people make an incredible amount, and a lot of podcasters use Patreon as well to monetize. So Patreon says that Patreon is building a native video hosting, meaning their own version of YouTube, which would reduce creators' reliance on YouTube, which actually makes a lot of sense. Patreon could, because a lot of those creators on YouTube who use Patreon are in danger of getting shut down anyways, like the person I'm talking about, LaoY86. It's totally possible that YouTube will shut him down at some point. So if Patreon has their own video hosting, at least you could dual post on both. And it's very likely that those creators are going to tell their listeners and audience and viewers, hey, watch us on Patreon, not on YouTube, because we don't make anything on YouTube. And Patreon might actually, it would be really clever if Patreon builds an ad network and then shares some of that revenue with those creators. It would just be essentially a safer platform than YouTube is for a lot of creators who make content that isn't advertiser friendly, so to say.
They could also go in a slightly different direction than that, if just forget about ads and go towards something like a public radio model, which kind of fits in really well with what they are already.
Right. The next one is Turkish delivery startup called Getir, which promises 10-minute grocery deliveries, launches in Chicago and plans to roll out in New York City and Boston by the end of the year, meaning in the next month and a half. So now you've got the Russian delivery company Yandex in New York City. You've got Turkish delivery companies in New York City. You've got It's amazing. It's really amazing to see this whole 10-minute delivery boom happening globally at the moment. The next one is that CoreWeave, which offers a specialized cloud service. Who cares? Next one from Bloomberg says it's a breaking news piece here that streamers are seeking out unscripted TV, including documentaries and reality TV, as a cheaper and popular alternative to the prestige shows they first produced. Meaning, when they say streamers, they mean platforms like Netflix. So I'll read that again in that context. So platforms like Netflix, streaming video platforms, are seeking out unscripted TV. Yes, because it's much cheaper to produce unscripted TV, like reality TV, because you don't have to pay writers, and it's far, far, far cheaper to produce documentaries than scripted movies, which is why Michael Moore can make a movie for $1 million and it can generate substantial revenue. You can't make a scripted movie for $1 million and it would look like a community college movie production. Streaming platforms like Netflix are seeking out unscripted TV, including documentaries and reality TV, as a cheaper and popular alternative to the quote-unquote prestige shows they first produced. Yeah, of course. Way, way, way cheaper content. After binging on dramas, Netflix and rivals target reality TV, especially if there's going to be a writer's strike, which there very nearly was. Very nearly. Netflix has grown into the world's biggest buyer of unscripted programming. Its competitors are following suit. Earlier this year, after teaming up with former ESPN executive Connor Schell, Brent Montgomery, a TV producer behind popular reality series Pawn Stars, began pitching an unscripted series that would take viewers into Golden's weirdly compelling substructure of hawking baseball cards, selling. Anyway, so they're making more of like a Pawn Stars, which is a reality TV series for Netflix. Such is the state of competition in Hollywood in 2021 across the industry. In an effort to hold onto fickle, restless subscribers, streaming services are jockeying over longtime staple of cable and broadcast TV, aggressively loading up on various forms of unscripted programming, including reality TV shows. Unscripted content is buzzy, sticky, bingeable, cheaper, and quicker to make than scripted, says Van Toffler, the former head of MTV, who is now chief executive officer of Gunpowder and Sky, a production company. All of the streamers are heavily underweight. The new trend runs counter to the early days of original streaming programming, when emerging services typically looked to make a splash by focusing on lavish scripted series. Yeah, like Squid Game. Economics of unscripted programming make the format particularly appealing to streaming services looking to expand their menu of original offerings. An entire season of a reality show like F-Boy Island on HBO Max costs the same as an episode or two of a top drama on the company's flagship channel. As a result, streaming services are rapidly buying up everything from documentary series to competition shows like game shows, to travelogues, to food programming and lifestyle shows. Netflix was really easy to pitch the last few years because almost anything you could take to cable, you could take to Netflix. They started to figure out what's working for them. Okay, simple enough. So the next one is autonomous driving startup called Embark Trucks closes at $8.80 per share in its NASDAQ debut. Weave Communications, which offers cloud tools for small businesses, dropped nearly 22% in its New York Stock Exchange debut. Meta made over 21 acquisitions in the past 3 years, including at least 4 VR startups this year. Sources say it paid $500 million for the most recent one, which is called Within. Physical trading cards marketplace and custody service Alt raises $75 million. Atomic, which provides an API for fintech companies and banks to launch investment products, raises $25 million. And that is pretty much your big headlines. And now we get into the tweets. Let me refresh just to make sure there isn't any late breaking ones coming in here. Nope, that's it. Okay, so we get into the tweets, like this one from Sudamini, that Indian consumers are spending almost 5 hours per day on mobile apps. According to App Annie, smartphone users in India spent 4.8 hours a day on average using various mobile apps in Q3 2021, making Indians amongst the most heavy app users, among the most mobile-first consumers in the world. Well, it makes sense because the cost of smartphones have now come down to under $100, which is much less than a laptop. So Indian consumers, being an emerging market, are going to use smartphones more than desktops. Makes a lot of sense. And the average daily hours spent in apps. I now have a chart. This is a really good chart. On a country basis. Oh, who beats India? Oh, wow. So India averages 4.8 hours per day, which is tied with Mexico and Japan. And then you have Canada and a bunch of others. But there are 3 countries that watch even more hours per day than India. So which 3 countries watch more than 5 hours per day on their smartphones? Ooh, what a great Tech News Jeopardy question. Here we go, everybody. Messi, here we go. Which 3 countries watch more than 5 hours per day on their phones? Or which country watches the most?
The US?
No.
Korea.
Japan, United States.
Yeah,
China?
Yeah.
China?
Korea, Japan.
So if you said Korea, you get 1 point. Korea beats India. South Korea watches 5 hours per day. There are 2 countries that watch more than Korea, quite a bit more than Korea.
Okay, what are they?
The hint is, as I said before, countries that are developing countries, because developing countries watch content on smartphones exclusively because they don't buy.
Nigeria, maybe.
Nigeria, yeah.
Yeah,
Nigeria.
That would
Brazil.
be
actually, Netflix is very cheap in India.
the correct answers are Brazil with 5.4 hours per day, but there's another country that watches more than Brazil.
Are they watching telenovelas? That would be a hint.
The correct answer, the most with 5.5 hours per day, is Indonesia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
I arrived at
Didn't
Brazil
it?
just because they linked Bolsonaro.
Because they cannot do crypto because it's haram.
That was the headline yesterday for those who missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, next. That was a great tweet. Thank you, Sudamini. The next one is also from Sudamini. This is a good one. Ooh, this is crazy. Social media giants and Amazon and Google and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and others, Meta, Microsoft, Snapchat, and Twitter, issue a global call to protect children online. Do you see where this is going? Do you know what this will turn into? How will you do that? What steps will be taken?
Identity.
Carl's got the smart hat on today. Signatories include Amazon, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Meta, Microsoft, Snapchat, and Twitter. Internet giants, including social media apps, joined several world leaders, and now you know who's calling the shots, to issue a global call to better protect children online at a Paris summit on Thursday. The call, initiated by France and the UN Child Protection Agency, UNICEF, acknowledges that in the digital environment, children can come across harmful and violent content and manipulation of information. Just like adults, children have rights to privacy, which should be respected. The text also calls upon all governments, online service providers, and relevant organizations to stand up for children's rights in the digital environment. Signatories include, as I said, the companies. The call was also been joined by 8 nations, including France, Italy, Argentina, Jordan, and Morocco, although not the United States. About 30 heads of states and governments and Vice President Kamala Harris were participating in the Paris Peace Forum that opened Thursday. The summit, organized both in person and online, brings together world leaders, CEOs, and NGOs, and others to discuss global issues such as climate and COVID-19 and digital transition. Macron chaired the session about children's rights in the presence of YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki, and all contents without rules. Macron said, that must go via parental control installed by default on some tools, he says. He also insisted on the need for educating children about the risks of social media. Macron, Harris, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the digital domain, along with Microsoft President Brad Smith. Harris announced that the U.S. is joining the Paris call launched in 2018 to improve security and better regulate cyberspace. Children's rights advocates have for years urged internet giants to take action to better protect children. Revelations last month from whistleblower Frances Haugen about the internal Facebook studies on the harm of Instagram on teenagers intensified parents' concerns about the popular photo sharing app. Justine Atlin, head of Enfants, a group advocating the protection of children on the internet, participated in the forum, saying, "We can build a lot of tools, but all of these functionalities are useless because children lie about their age." Oh. So, how do we deal with that? How can we somehow, is there some way to actually really know how old they are somehow, maybe? For me, this is a big issue, she said. That's why I think we all need to work together to find solutions. The head of the French Association Fighting School Bullying praised a key moment that puts international pressure on internet giants. Here's another quote. "Those who are spreading hatred via their pipes hold some responsibility," she said, about popular social media apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. Cyberbullying and bullying at school are often interconnected.
Yeah, I just oh sorry, this is Roy. I think that's a really interesting question when it comes to protecting the minors while maintaining the data privacy, right? So because you guys all know, China has issued the gaming policy for the minors, and then when it comes to the acquisition, I think what they did is to really very implement to begin with. So yeah, I just want to just bring that up because as again we see these kind of patterns and we see these kind of regulations and like discussions, but when it comes to the action plans, then it's a different story.
Roy, are you still in Germany?
I'm still in Germany, and
how is the emergency number? There was an outage, right? Is it revived already?
In terms of COVID or in terms of what?
No, the police number and the what I call that, the fire engine number. I thought there was an outage yesterday.
Oh,
you didn't know? It's fine.
I didn't follow that one. That's a good one. I was like, what's
you
going
would only
on?
know that if you tried calling it.
Somebody say maybe it's hacked.
That would be a really not so fruitful hack.
Yeah.
And also in terms of identity, if we are really going to be using real ID cards, who is going to be in charge of those information? I think that's way too personal information. Who's going to be in charge? Like, I mean, the tech companies are going to be hoarding all that amazing data because especially the young people, they can use it the rest of their lives, right? Or if, God forbid, if governments get a hold of it, especially in rogue countries, they can use it for many, just nefarious things. So to me, is just such a really delicate situation. Who's going to be in charge of those things?
Yep. Okay. The next one is that from Poppy, that another restaurant is going partly autonomous. Buffalo Wild Wings, which is rather popular in the US, little chicken wings, is testing robotic wing fryer. And it's the same company, Miso Robotics, who provides the French via our eyes. Scientists can measure the resulting brain activity using magnetic resonance imaging, like an MRI. The precise measurement of eye movements during an MRI scan can tell scientists a great deal about our thoughts, memories, and current goals, but also about diseases of the brain. Researchers from the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognition and Brain Sciences in Leipzig and the Kavli Institute for Systems Neuroscience in Trondheim, Norway, which I think Ellen would know something about, have now developed software that uses AI to directly predict in advance eye position and eye movements from MRI images.
Do we want to take bets on how long until some of these researchers get job offers from Facebook?
The method opens up rapid and cost-effective research and diagnostic possibilities, for example, in neurological diseases that often manifest as changes in eye movement patterns. Oh shit. To record eye movements, research. So what this tells you is, if they start to understand that certain diseases will create interesting eye movements that you are unaware of, however, your VR goggles will be aware of. And your VR goggles will say, oh, Tyler, your eyes just made the pattern that signify that you have Alzheimer's, like 20 years in advance. Or the question is, what other neurological diseases, schizophrenia, I'm just trying to think what the long list is, PTSD, kind of depression, anxieties. You see where I'm going.
But then you can treat it, right?
Well,
Because
yeah, yeah, but do we want our VR headsets to have such intimate knowledge of of things that we're not even aware of ourselves?
But we have all these personal healthcare devices nowadays. That's one of the reason we have that, right? Because it monitor how healthy you are and then give you some reminder or something about to see if you're gonna have some kind of disease and cure it.
It's really interesting because, I would be the first to raise my hand to say that I over-index on looking at mayoclinic.com or whatever it is to, self-diagnose myself and others. But yeah, there's the question of who has access to the data. And then there's also the question of, how we ourselves might interpret or misinterpret what we think that the VR is telling us. So, I think that there are at least two, primary areas of concern that we need to address. Who has access, and then what do we do with it? How do we interpret it? And how can we prevent misuse, either individually or by this third party?
So there are two things here. I mean, if it's making an actual diagnosis, then it's something that has to be FDA approved and such, and also anything that it generates would fall under medical data protections. And so that's like a really complicated issue. There probably is like something short of that, which is, oh, we noticed a pattern that says you should go to a neurologist and get checked without even telling you for what. But another use case that I think is interesting and potentially powerful to the extent that you can get good correlations with the observables in question with disease progression is that you have a way of tracking how quickly things are getting worse, because some people will have mild cognitive impairment or decline, and that'll just be like a slow process. Other people, and there are like lots of factors that go into this, will like have like the first warning signs, and then they'll crash fairly rapidly.
I would love to add that everything about the eye is a huge telltale about your health, which means that the iris, the retina, and the eye movements, and Eli, as you very correctly pointed out, when you use wearables, also what happens over time. So the tracking, that will be able to tell more about your health and the progression or decline of your health than we at the moment are aware of. And I'm sure that this is one of the areas where we will see huge development. And the wonderful thing is that we can just use the biometric readings at home because they're unintrusive. We don't have to go to the doctors. We don't have to go to a medical clinic. And the good thing about that is also that it can be equally distributed. We just talked about where people use their smartphones or telephones more than 5 hours a day, and this is developing countries. So they could actually quite easily get access to eye readings to cover the whole area, and also to connect biometric reading and core numbers of your health to your phone, because that is already being developed and actually being starting to be tested in Africa. So we're looking at a huge developing area, and FDA approval and everything else. Yes, that's the problem today, but this will develop that we will find solution to it. When we look back in 5 years, I think we'll be much farther into this area. Susie from Denmark, thank you.
The point about regulation that both Susie and Eli have just made is really important, because we're getting to this stage now where we've had the first wave of the internet where very little data was really connected en masse, and then we moved to this following wave where huge amounts of data was collected from each user to almost zero benefit to the user. The data that's collected on me from YouTube or from other people's social media, you don't get any benefit back from it. You don't. Okay, the ability to discover things that you may enjoy next is not really comparable to the level of data that gets taken from you. With this next wave, we have the possibility of actually getting something back as the user. But if the regulations are not handled correctly, and if the people in charge of drafting the next wave of regulation are either not educated enough or scared about big tech and big data, then what I'm worried about is what will happen is that the data will still be collected. Of course it will. It will be wrapped up in some sort of like cohort or something like that. And it will be used, it will be masked and anonymized ever so slightly. And it will still be used by the companies, but you won't get any of the benefit, because the process of FDA approval, for instance, is so strict that they just go, right, fine, fuck it. We're not going to bother. We're not going to bother giving this data back to the user. We're not going to bother trying to give them health reports or anything like that. But we're still going to collect the data, and we're still going to use it. And then those uses may not be as benign as the alternatives that could be put on the table by these companies.
And that scenario could also be facilitated by regulatory capture, which we know is a real thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, but do you remember that even what's his name, Adam Schiff's phone was given, the data was given from Apple to the Trump administration. So you can imagine if there was a lot of health data about his kid, his wife, or you name it, and gets blackmailed. I mean, you can imagine in some of the dictatorship around the world, if they get a hold of their opposition leader kids and blackmail them, and these things happen. They are really very sensitive data. So to me, it's like not just the regulation, but also who is going to be in charge of it, and who is going to be very easily capable of accessing them and use them for many not good things. So to me is a very it's getting into the next level, especially knowing that some dictatorships and even the Trump administration getting access from Apple phone, that this would be a very scary thing for me when I look at it. Unless we have a very secure and no one has access to it very easily. But yeah, it's something that needs really a very not thinking competency of about security or regulation, but also a very tight access to it.
So, Messi, you're going to open your room in 2 minutes, right?
Yes, I think tech inclusion room, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Florian
he's on the phone.
Yeah.
But before that,
It's
Tyler, can I
Florian.
just make an announcement? Oh, is Tyler there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Cheryl. Oh, that's fine.
Thank you, Messi. Today's startup, we will be featuring the first African startup founder. His edtech, his startup is called SmartCore. It's a AI-driven edtech. So please join us in 3.5 hours time. And I already pinned it on top of the room. So if you are interested, please click on it and click on the bell. So when the room opens, you will be aware. Messi?
So I have 3 tweets. Messi, go ahead and open your room.
Go ahead.
I saved 4 good tweets, headlines that I'm going to share while you open that room. And they'll only take 1 minute to read all 4 of them, but they're really good ones.
Wow.
Yeah, the tech inclusion room. So yeah, please
Yes,
everybody
I'll pin it
join.
on top now.
We'll be there in one
Okay,
second.
thanks.
So here's the last four, which will go really fast, but they're really good. So the first one is Twitter hired some crypto folks, and now they're saying what they're going to do, how they're going to utilize blockchain and crypto inside of Twitter. Here's the quote. First, we will be exploring how we can support the growing interest among creators to use decentralized apps to manage virtual goods and currencies and to support their work and communities. Looking further ahead, we will be exploring how ideas from crypto communities can help us push the boundaries of what's possible with identity, community, and ownership, and more. There you have blockchain identity right there. Super, super interesting.
Just quickly on that, Tyler, that's the Twitter Blue Sky community they set up several months back now. It's really, really, really active. It's a super group they actually operate out of Discord. They've just started recently hosting live events on Spaces, actually, where you can talk to them and chat to them. It's a super, super, super active group. There's hundreds of really smart people on there, and they cover everything from blockchain and crypto and NFTs and identity and decentralized social networking and just everything. Like some of the smartest people in the world at the moment coming together to work on this open source concept that will eventually replace Twitter. That's what they want from this. So it's a really, really cool community. That's the Blue Sky community if anybody's interested.
Yep. And the next one's from Professor Ossoff. Again, a good but short one. Fatty acid found in palm oil linked to spread of cancer. This is from The Guardian, and it's a study published by Nature. So that's a pretty solid study on mice found palmitic acid from palm oil promoted metastasis in mouth and skin cancers. A study published in Nature found that palmitic acid promoted metastasis in mouth and skin cancers. Cancer cells need palmitic acid found in palm oil to spread the cancer, at least in mice. You might want to switch to a different type of oil if you're using palm oil, as many people do.
There are many other reasons to not use palm oil.
Cosmetics. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Who was that?
Sorry, Lakeisha, you go ahead, ladies first.
No. We may have been saying the same thing. It's not only, the oil that we ingest, it's palm oil is used in so many of our health and beauty products as well. So it's not only, what we use to fry our chicken, but it's in lotions and skin creams and, lipsticks, and it's in a lot of products. Okay. And it's really, really bad for the environment.
And the massive, massive deforestation that's taking place around the world.
My goodness.
Simply to plant, cutting down 1,000-year-old trees, hundreds of thousands of square hectares, just to place the palm oil plants.
Plantations. Yeah, it's horrible.
So, I'm not a doctor, but I have researched this extensively, and I would also add vegetable oils to this list, like rapeseed oil.
Okay. So the last two, a CEO who struggled with Facebook addiction hired a human. His name's Manish Sethi. He was fighting his addiction of Facebook by hiring a human, by the hour to slap him if he tried to use Facebook.
That sounds kinky, Tyler. I know you wanted to get that one in, but that doesn't even sound right.
That is wonderful. Was this board approved?
Is this about Facebook or BDSM?
But then it says his productivity rose due to his breaking his addiction of Facebook.
I love the fact that he found a roundabout way to enjoy his fetish. He was like, look, I'm doing this altruistic thing.
Yeah. We need to look at the data on that one.
This just in, BDSM increases productivity.
And last, but definitely not least, from Reuters, so you know this is important news, the lawsuit over Subway tuna is back. November 12th. Here we go. Here's the latest update. The lawsuit over Subway tuna now says that chicken, pork, cattle DNA were detected. A new version of a lawsuit accusing Subway of deceiving the public about its tuna products said lab testing shows they contain animal proteins such as chicken, pork, and cattle, and not the advertised 100% tuna. Now we're getting down to the mystery of what is in this mystery meat. Karen Danoa and Nalima Ammon filed a third version of their proposed class action lawsuit this week in the federal court of San Francisco near their homes in Alameda County. We read a headline about them 3 weeks ago where their quick case got thrown out because they said this is not tuna, but they had no actual evidence of what it was. So the judge threw it out, and now they're back saying, we've done some testing and now we know what it is. It's chicken, pork, and cattle DNA were in this quote-unquote tuna. Subway said in a statement, it will seek to dismiss this reckless and improper lawsuit. The Subway said the plaintiffs have quote-unquote filed 3 meritless complaints, changing their story each time, and that it is quote-unquote high-quality, wild-caught, 100% tuna, thank you very much, was regulated strictly in the United States and around the world. Since the case began in January, Subway has run TV ads and launched a website defending its tuna. It also revamped its menu, but not its tuna, saying an upgrade wasn't needed. Thank you very much. The original complaint claimed that Subway tuna salads, sandwiches, and wraps were quote-unquote bereft of tuna, while an amended complaint said they were not 100% sustainably caught skipjack and yellowfin tuna. A U.S. District Judge, John Tagar, dismissed the second version last month, saying that the plaintiffs did not show they bought Subway tuna based on alleged misrepresentations. You have to show that you had financial you were tricked into buying something, and they can't even prove that they even bought it. They didn't even have a financial loss, so you can't sue them. He did not rule on the merits and gave the plaintiffs another chance to make their case. The November 8th lawsuit, which was just filed, relies on testing by a marine biologist of 20 tuna samples taken from 20 Subway restaurants in Southern California. The lab says that 19 of the 20 samples had quote-unquote no detectable tuna DNA sequences, while all 20 contained detectable chicken DNA, 11 contained pork DNA, and 7 contained cattle DNA. Many people cannot eat various meats because of diet or religious issues. The complaint said the testing showed that Subway mislabeled its tuna products, and duped consumers into paying premium prices. Amin said she ordered Subway tuna products more than 100 times in 2013, 2019. And so there's her financial loss right there. And always checked the menu to ensure she would be eating only tuna. The lawsuit seeks unspecified damages for fraud and violations of California consumer protection laws. The case is called Amin versus Subway Restaurants, U.S. District Court, Northern District, California. And now we await the judge's decision, which I no doubt will have in the next couple of days. So we will patiently wait for that while we all ourselves go enjoy a Subway sandwich tuna break. And see you over in the Messy Tech News Inclusion room, everybody.
At the end of all of this, they need to hire these plain